I'd like to welcome you to another video from the shop. My name is Brian and this is Prosper Woodworks. If you're new to the channel and like woodworking both with and without a CNC, please consider subscribing and click to turn on notifications so you'll be notified when I post new videos. For those who are already subscribed, thank you. Your support means more than you know. Today I'm going to be going through my initial review of the Sienci Labs LongMill, the 30x30. I noted in my assembly video how easy it was to put together. You know, it was detailed, but it wasn't difficult. I even screwed up putting my X-axis on, showed how easy it was to fix that. I also have a video for the dust shoe and the touch probe. I noted the issue that I had with the touch probe's connection, but this is about my experience after that, and it has been incredible. I will note as we go along some of the gotchas that hit me, so maybe if you're looking to do the same type of thing, you can avoid them. First, I noted when I put this on that I wasn't too sure how well I was going to like this, because I thought it would get caught up to the bit. That has proven not to be the case. But what I have noticed is that when I hook my dust collection, which right now I'm using my shop vac, and turn it on, the suction pulls this in. It does not go to the blade, so that's not an issue. But what it does do, unlike the back, which is open, and it has to be open so you can get it on and off easily with it still lowered. But what it does do is as the suction pulls it in, dust can come through around this outside. If I'm moving this way and this is getting pulled in, dust is coming around here as it's being ejected from the blade, the bit, and it's getting stuck here as it tries to come back in for dust collection. So if I'm going this way, I'm basically leaving dust right here. What I've noticed, as I said, this is open so we can get it on and off, but when I'm traveling this way, some of the dust that I left on the last pass, assuming I'm going right next to the previous one, will make its way back in here, but I don't see much dust at all escaping out the back, where you would think it would be leaving a trail just like it did on the front. And I believe it's because there's nothing here blocking it from being able to get back in. I don't know, that's just a guess and from what I've seen. That said, if you have this 1/8 of an inch above your work surface as you're cutting, it will leave dust. If you have it resting right on when you're running, the dust is very, very minimal. Even what comes out here, and the way I said it, it may seem like it doesn't work at all. That's not true. It leaves some dust here, but it is noticeably less than without dust collection at all. And it's just what escapes through here. So if I were to recommend anything, I would maybe think about making that somewhat more stable, more sturdy. I know you wouldn't want it so that, you know, if you plunge it down, you want it to be able to bend. But I don't think you want it to bend back in that much. And they may say there's too much suction, but when it comes to dust collection, is there really such thing? Getting it on and off is very simple. set it down on the surface, and you're not going to have any problems with a majority of the dust that you get. So that was the first thing that I noticed. As I've used it more and more, I've come to think that a spindle that could be controlled externally would be nice, but this is doing a fantastic job. I noticed that you've got your eccentric nuts up here to tighten the wheels, and after the first time I ran it, I noticed my Z was moving a little bit. The way I solved that, these up here were tight. These down here were loose. So all I did was I lifted up this gantry a little bit to relieve the pressure on these and tighten them up. So something to be aware of. It does help to kind of remove the gravity effect when you're tightening your eccentric nuts. And really that's been the only issue I've had with the machine itself. And that's more, I'm new to it, and that worked. This isn't me. I'm actually thinking about getting rid of this, unscrewing that and see if it changes the dust collection at all. It might. Maybe I'm just an edge case that the speeds I'm running allow it to do that. I haven't cranked it up to see how fast it'll go and how deep it'll go and all that. I've been more concerned with getting work done, and this has definitely helped me do that. The touch plate, after the issue I had here, if we go over to G-Sender, and this is, I'm not going to go into a lot of details about G-Sender or any other program, but one thing that I do like, it's a bit of a hassle in a way, but it's really beneficial. One of those beneficial hassles. If you go into settings and come over here to probe, it's got a probe connectivity test. And I can show you what I do for this to kind of make it a little easier. But this will not let the probe set Z if your connections aren't working. So it comes by default turned on. I started off using UGS and it does not have that capability. But let me just show you. I take the top and put it through right here. That way I don't have to mess with anything down there. And it's a magnet, so it'll stick. And then I'll raise my Z so that I can get the probe under it. And now when you click probe Z, you get a screen that says it's red here. You cannot probe Z until you raise up your probe and it can touch. See right there, I've got an issue. And that issue is that doorway. Okay, so you've got a touch detected. Now you can start the probe. You just set it back down. If I were actually doing this, I'd make it a little easier so I didn't move the probe quite as much. But then if you start probe, you're guaranteed, since it knows it, you already know the connection's valid, it'll go ahead and probe it. And you're done. It raises it up. Mine raises up 19. I don't know if that's what everyone's would be, but that gets that out of the way. I don't have to worry about the connection issue anymore. Another thing that I noticed with UGS, and as I said, I'm not going into the software too much because it's more about my impressions of the machine. But when your machine is controlled by software, the software plays a bigger part. I wouldn't need to do this for the table saw or circular saw or my radial arm saw. But since this is controlled by software, it does make a difference. One thing that I had an issue with on UGS was when I went to move my X and Y and I let up after holding it for a while, it would keep going. As long as I was in the center, that's not an issue. When you start getting close to your extents and UGS is still trying to push it, it will throw off your X and Y if they're already set and you want to keep them set. So something to be aware of. What I like about G-Sender, no way would I do this with UGS. I can bring it up to my laptop, let off, and it stops. UGS would probably have the laptop closed before I knew about it. So something to be aware of there. I have not had any issues with the system disconnecting. I did replace the USB cable right off the bat just because I wanted one longer so I could have my laptop over on my workbench. But this has done everything that I've asked it to do. And while I thought, just get this out of the way real quick. And what I thought I would be doing when I was looking at a CNC was carving. Since that's something I've been doing it by hand. And I've been using this router, all set up to carve. I thought that's what I would be replacing first when I got this, but it's not. I haven't. I did do some carving, and it's primarily just to see how it would work and get a good picture of that for you. But what this let me do that the router didn't was I could put all of this into Carbide Create is what I was using to start off. But I could put the text on there and I could get it carved and send it off to see if that's what the customer wanted. And some fonts you'll notice that it's not woodworking or CNC specific, but some fonts, everything looks great except maybe the spacing of one letter, or the size needs to be a little different. And what would take me hours just to get a test manually, I can get this done all total about 5 minutes start to finish. Change name, change font, change location, change size, send it over here, have the CNC do it, take a picture and send it off for approval. So that was pretty much the extent of my carving, because that's not what I found would benefit me the most starting out. I did do the requisite sheet, so I did get to see it work right off the bat. And for something so simple, it was possibly the most incredible thing I've seen in my shop in a long time, because this was really just sending the file over, crossing fingers, hoping I got everything set up right, and it worked. Since then, it's been a member of the shop. what I have been able to do, and this is where my next gotcha comes in, is in making zero clearance inserts for my table saw. Now you'll notice, making it out of plywood. It's cheap. It's the cheapest thing I've got because it's free. I don't care if it takes me 100 times getting it to run through here. It's not costing me any more. But I don't want them made out of plywood. I want them made out of MDF. So this has allowed me to make subtle changes, drastic changes. The software lets me turn it around, generate G-code, send it over here, and it cuts. But what I noticed right off the bat when I assembled the machine, before I did the sheep, which, like I said, was the first thing I actually did, I leveled my table. My table's my wasteboard. I leveled my table, and that was my first, man, I wish I hadn't done that. Reason being is it actually cut down a millimeter or so, actually a little more on this end than that end, but it made it perfectly flat and it worked great. It was perfectly flat. And as long as I put things inside of that flattened area, everything was fine. But like I said, I was doing my zero clearance inserts and I was running a 2x4 sheet of plywood across the table. And let me get this out of the way and I'll show you. Not only does the plywood flex, but since I resurfaced my wasteboard area, which again is just the 30x30, and my table extends out past it, I have a dip both at the front and the back. And it doesn't look like much, but when you're dealing with thousandths of an inch, it really does matter. When the plywood was resting here and resting in the back, it would push down in the middle. So you see I've got some cuts in here. Those are to be expected, but they wouldn't be as necessary if I had not surfaced my table. So what I'm looking at doing is go back and raise a wasteboard, most likely with T-Trex or some other such hold down feature, but just have my work surface raised up, and it'll raise up past the table, and then I'll be able to put something out here to raise that up just for support while still pulling stuff down to the work surface. And I think that will aid me in being able to do things a lot smoother. Like I said though, overall, I highly recommend the machine. There are quite a few that I looked at. Some were more money than I wanted to spend. Some took way too long to ship. And some I thought, yeah, it's cheaper, but I didn't see that I had the room to grow with those that I do with this. So overall, I am very pleased with the machine. I have done a little carving, as you saw, but not much. But what this has let me do is move more of my jigsaw work, more of my router work over to an automated environment that lets me move a lot faster and a lot more repeatably. So definitely a good investment for the price. I really don't know that you can beat it. I know everyone's coming out with new things, but those are my initial thoughts. I will update this as I do more, and I will start doing CNC project videos. But again, the door here may or may not be an issue for you. Make sure you raise up to adjust your eccentric nuts, and know what you're going to do. If you're going to do full sheets, know that surfacing your wasteboard table will affect if it's thin enough to push down. Okay, those are the 3 big takeaways on the watch out for that on the hardware side. Software, I do recommend, unless you have something you've been using or something out there is better, G-Sender from CNC does control movement a lot better, so you're not hitting up against the ends. I do know they now have limit switches. I haven't gotten those. I'm just very, very thankful that I've got that probe detect, so I don't try and probe it if the probe's somehow disconnected, and I don't have to worry about it. G-Sender won't keep going after I let off the button the way UGS would. So if anyone has any comments or questions, feel free to leave them below. Until next time.